So let's start. So now we are on source 5 with the Rambam. So the last thing that we covered on this sheet was the concept of what the Ritba said, and the Ritba held that a mezonot is what we call a beracha kolelet, a beracha that is inclusionary. The concept that we wanted to stress was that if a person has a safek as to if something is hamotzi, if something is, you're sitting with a bread item and you're not sure if it's hamotzi or mizonot because of the reasons that we said before, either because what are the three reasons? Let's just review. Pata baba kisnin is either something that is crispy like a cracker, it's something that has a pocket that has sweets or sugar or fruits in it, or it is something that is kneaded into the dough. Those three reasons have to be burned into your brain. We say mezonot on all three of those items. All three of those items. Saying mezonot on that, so we said, what's the logic? So we quoted the Ritba from Masech Berachot that says that is beracha kolelet. It includes. It's inclusionary. What did we compare it to? We said, so just like shahakol nihiyabed baro, which could theoretically include everything. It's theoretically include everything if you messed up or if you didn't know, because it says shahakol nihiyabed baro, everything is included. And so too, borei mineh mezonot, that Hashem created types of mazon, grains that satiate. So that applies to bread as well. Once you limit it to bread and it's really not bread, it's a problem. So if you had to pick, you would always go with mezonot. So we're coming down to this is at the end of this sheet. I wanted to focus on just certain specific items and then just go into the controversy that we mentioned of a person's challah, somebody who bakes challah. So let's go into, let's first read the Rambam, and Hamadia is going to actually call out little challah rolls as a separate discipline. So let's see what happens. The Rambam says the following. This is important. Rambam in Hilchot Berachot Halacha Gimal, Perek Gimal Halacha Tet, Vehu sheyeh ta'am hata'arovet nikar ba'isa. In order for something to be considered mezonot, because something is mixed with it in the dough, the actual taste of the item has to be, you have to taste the actual item inside the dough. So let's give an example. If I just use sugar, if I use sugar in my challah dough, so if I don't use a lot of sugar, I put half a cup of sugar, half a cup of salt, and that's for the entire, I don't know, 5 pound bag of flour. When a person bites into the challah, they're not tasting sugar. They're not going to actually taste the sugar. So in that case, that challah will still become hamotzi. Same thing with if a person uses, I don't know, 2 to 3 eggs, 4 eggs. Sometimes people use a lot of eggs, and even though it colors the coloring of the challah, that happens after. But sometimes you can taste it where you're like, this tastes eggy, right? You can taste an egg bagel. How many of you have had an egg bagel? So an egg bagel is mizonot. You can taste the egg inside the bagel. That's why a person gets an egg bagel, because it has a different taste. So it has to be the benchmark of whether or not we say, is there something in this dough that can make it mizonot, is it must be based on taste. That's the Rambam. As opposed to what, Rabbi? You would say as opposed to re'iyah, seeing it. So let's go to the Aruch HaShulchan. So the Aruch HaShulchan is Rabbi Epstein. He's an Aharon, but he was the Ashkenazim. If you're a real Talmid Chacham, you learn the Aruch HaShulchan like Al HaSeder in order. Meaning, before, how many of you have heard of, you could raise your virtual hand, Mishnah Berurah? Who's heard of Mishnah Berurah from the Hafetz Haim? Good, thank you, Margie. Right, the Mishnah Berurah was Rabbi the Hafetz Haim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan HaKohen, and he wrote the Mishnah Berurah more concise, still quoting the Bet Yosef, but he made it very easy, much easier language. Before the Mishnah Berurah, everybody learned Aruch HaShulchan. flipping the Shulchan Aruch, this is Aruch HaShulchan. Coming much later, he was Ashkenazi, but everybody learned it. It was the most popular book. That was how you got your halacha, but it was more complicated. It was more complex. So, quoting the Aruch HaShulchan, he says the following now in source 6, Beferush Divrei Maran. In explaining the words of Maran Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, Shemeh Perot, fruit juice, Vetevalin, spices, Hainu Shehu Nikarin Ba'isa, they have to be recognized in the dough, meaning we said that one of the categories is to make sure that if something is kneaded in the dough, covered in the dough, then you say mizonot. So it has to be, we said how much needs to be, how much does it need to be? It has to be recognized, nikad. Hainu b'mar'it ha'ayin. The Aruch HaShulchan says you have to be able to see it with your eyes. V'lachen lo amar nikar ta'am. He doesn't say, why does he say that it just has to be recognized in the dough? The Aruch HaShulchan says, and it doesn't say that you have to, the flavor has to be recognized. Must be that you don't have to actually taste it, but if you see a change in the dough, then it's automatically going to be mizonot. So based on this Aruch HaShulchan, if the challah roll is even a little bit yellow, then you're saying mizonot. That would be one case. Or if a person sees, let's say, cinnamon and sugar, right? Sometimes, let's say, how many of you have had a cinnamon raisin challah for Rosh Hashanah? Right? So sometimes they can make a water challah that has some raisins in it. So if I see the raisins, this is going to be mezonot, for sure. According to this, on this, the Chacham Ovadia on these stars, he goes crazy. He says, Al zeh katav Chacham Ovadia, ve'kol ma shekatav Aruch HaShulchan shesarich sheyeh nikar b'marit ha'ayin, everything that the Aruch HaShulchan says that it has to be visible with your eyes, en lo yesod klal, it has no basis whatsoever in halacha. Ouch. That's a tough one. Lo shoresh, he goes further. Lo shoresh ve'lo anaf. It doesn't have a root or a branch. Wow. Pump the brakes, Rabbi. And no, he goes crazy. Badutahi. Baduta means like outside of the camp. Roasted. That's like, it doesn't get worse than that. If you say, in terms of like, Rabbi, tell us how you really feel. Right? He went crazy on it. He said it has nothing to do with whether or not you can see it. So that's important. I used to go when I lived on closer to Kings Highway. I used to go to sometimes I'll still go, but I can't remember the last time in this pandemic and everything. How many of you guys go to Renaissance Cafe? We'll give a plug here. Anybody go to Renaissance? Okay, fine. So
all the time.
All the time. Ready, Rochelle? So now what's the number one thing? The bread they put on the table with the olive spread. Sick, no? You know what I'm talking about, Rochelle, right?
Yeah, it's so good. The best one.
It's so good. It's so good. So now people say, do I say mizonot or do I say hamotzi? So I think that's mizonot for sure, because when you look at it, there's garlic and there's a lot of other things baked into the dough. It's not regular dough. That's why it's so good. It has that taste to it. So, and it's made like with fluff. It's made with other stuff that's put into it. But even by the eye, you can recognize that there's like garlic or there's other things that are placed into that bread. So in those cases, I like to say always mizonot but if you go to, let's say, like La Marée, also awesome. Yeah, how many of you guys been to La Marée? Right, come on, that's good. That's got to be La Maré's top. They give you the French bread that they cut, right? So that French bread that's for sure hamotzi. There's nothing inside of it. So again, it has to be something that you're able to taste. Again, some people could have different taste buds. To me, and I'll defer to Rochelle I know she doesn't like to unmute Rochelle, but maybe she'll come back one more time. Is that when
I'm here, Rabbi. I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm just driving, so I don't want to bother you.
No. You can always bother me. No problem. When you taste, Rochelle, what do you think? When you taste that bread, does it taste like regular bread or it tastes like, there's stuff inside?
Which, the La Marée one?
No. The Renaissance.
No, it has like a taste to it, like a buttery, like, I don't know, like it has like a different taste. It's not like regular. cream bread.
Exactly, for sure. So as long as you could taste it, then you can go back to driving, Rochelle. I don't need you anymore. We can do right. We did that taste. If you could taste it, it's mezonot. So let's go through a couple of things that you would taste that are going to be mezonot that you could taste that's different. 2 or 3 of them are controversial. Should we start with the controversial ones? I'm going to start with the controversial ones because I like that. So I say mezonot on those Arnold's buns. You know that you have a barbecue, those Arnold's buns.
Yeah, the flat
Yeah. First of all, it's like cake. That's why it's awesome, right? There's so much high fructose corn syrup. If you just ate that by yourself, it tastes like cake. It's not real bread. It's mezonot, but it's not. There's so much. If you look at it, I think it's like the second ingredient is high fructose corn syrup in those things. You can taste how those buns are sweet. You can taste how sweets maybe is a difficult word, but you can tell that there's a sweetness or a sweet texture to that cake. It's cakey when it's in your mouth. It's not. If you take a bite, it like stays down, like it stays compressed. That's not what real bread is, and it has a shelf life. The preservative, the stuff that they're adding into those things, it's just cakey. What do my kids love? They love that. Also, like the Arnold's white bread. You know that white bread that they make like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich out of? It's the same thing. I say mezonot on that bread. Again, the white bread. Why is it white? Bread is never that white, right? There's a ton of sugar in it. There's a ton of high fructose corn syrup, and you taste the difference. You taste the sweetness. It doesn't taste like pita bread. It doesn't taste like a water challah. It doesn't taste like the crust of a pizza. So those things on white bread and on the Arnold's buns, hot dog and hamburger, I say mezonot. Now, if you're having a lot of them, if you're having like 6 buns, I don't know, like I'm talking to the girls now, but I'm saying like the high school boys, these guys, you go to a barbecue, they're pounding for hours. So if you have too much mezonot, then you're gonna have to wash anyway. So those things I'm saying mezonot on. Wraps, right? Let's say I'm having a wrap. So any wrap that has, let's say, like there's the tomato basil wrap, there's the spinach wrap, anything that has it's easier with the wraps because like they're different colors. Like you could see that they're colors. On a regular wrap, I usually say mezonot only because I have my doubts. Let's say it's a plain whole wheat wrap. Most of them have also, in order to get it like in a wrap, they add sugar, they add high fructose corn syrup. An example of a wrap we have to say hamotzi is how many of you guys have had a shawarma but with a laffa? You guys have had a laffa, right? So a laffa, that's just a large pita bread. So pita bread you have to wash. A laffa you have to wash. For wraps, almost exclusively, I say mezonot on almost all wraps. I know on regular wraps, some people disagree with me, and they do say they wash. Ashkenazim for sure disagree. Ashkenazim, I think, say hamotzi even on the tomato, the sun-dried tomato wrap.
They say hamotzi on everything.
They say hamotzi on everything, but you saw the source, Margie, because they're following the Ramah. So they're following the Ramah because the only thing that Ashkenazim are going to say mezonot on is if it's like the cake is like a rugelach where there's chocolate oozing out of it or there's egg oozing out of it. They're not going to, the Ashkenazim wash on egg bagels, for sure. They will say mezonot on cinnamon raisin. So if you go to most shuls who want to stay away from this machloket, they're going to get cinnamon raisin bagels for everybody. I remember, I think Rabbi Pinchasi came to Deal Shul this summer, or last summer, and announced to everybody that the egg bagels are hamotzi. I don't think anybody listened. They're like, I don't know, Rabbi, because even Deal Shul, I know that for a fact, the Sephardic shuls, they know that people are not going to wash. So on purpose, they bring the egg bagels and the cinnamon raisin. And that follows what we're doing. Wraps are complicated. Sometimes the wrap could be more like a laffa. Sometimes the wrap cannot. But anytime food is processed and it's not fresh, there's so much high fructose corn syrup in it that I say mezonot.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So with the baked into the dough thing, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to only be something sweet baked into the dough.
Like, give me another example.
So you chose Renaissance as an example, which is like garlic or whatever it is. But when I learned it in high school, we learned greens throughout. Like if you see greens throughout the dough, like visible greens, even though you can't taste it, so it doesn't really go with this source because you can't taste it, but you can see it, then you say mezonot.
Really? So I think that might be the Aruch HaShulchan, meaning you have the Aruch HaShulchan to rely on, but according to Chacham Ovadia, he says don't even think about it.
So you should wash on something.
If it's grains, it has to be something sweet or has to be fruit juice or fruit. Like I'll give you an example: olive bread. So olive bread, I say mezonot on. I don't like olives, so I don't have. Where's Rini? Rini Minesh is here. We got to make sure she doesn't give me an olive challah. Where's Rini? Rini, you here? Okay, good. Rini.
No olives.
No olives. Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I have a question.
Shout out. She makes the best challah, guys. You got competition here. Yeah, Fran.
So I make sourdough bread. I put, let's say, a tablespoon of something into it sometimes. An olive or an herb or a nut.
Right. That's fine. If it's just a tablespoon, and sourdough is if you can correct me, I think it's just the way that the dough is aged. Meaning,
Yes.
I think, but the dough, the composition of the dough is still, flour, water, yeast, and that's it. Is that correct or no?
It's only flour, water, salt.
Yeah. So that would be hamotzi.
Okay.
Now, if you put so much in it, again, for instance, like I said, if a tablespoon of oil, like we were saying, 2-3 eggs, half a cup of sugar in the bag of flour that you're making, you're not going to taste that. You understand? You're not going to taste that it's sugar. You have to taste that it's sugar. You have to taste that it's oil. In the Arnold's dough, I'm tasting the sweetness. I'm what everybody love those buns. They're like, oh yeah, give me my son last night. My wife made chicken burgers, and he's like, Daddy, can I have a bun? My kid eats nothing. He's like, why does he want a bun? Because it's like cake. Good. I hope I answered the question, Francis. Yeah, good. Okay, good. So let's go. Let's keep going with any questions at this point on the items that I mentioned. Okay. So let's go back to something important, which is pizza. So pizza, the beracha, even Chacham Ovadia says in Hazon Ovadia. Let me see if I brought it here. I think it's on the other sheet. So pizza, even one slice, according to me, I know Rabbi Kassan Alav Shalom in making the Magen David booklets. You have what to rely on. Is pizza, even one slice is hamotzi, as long as it's made with just flour and water. Let's analyze why. If you've ever seen a pizza being made, right, the dough is fully made, and then sauce and cheese, are they placed inside the dough or on top?
On top.
On top. So the actual dough, when you take just the crust of the pizza and you bite into that, that's bread. That's not sweet. That's not anything. You can dip that into hummus and tahina, and it's like eating a burnt pita bread. It's great. Even one slice is a kazayit, and you definitely would say, even if it's less than a kazayit, you'd say one slice, you have to wash and say hamotzi. I remember, and I'll give him credit for Rabbi Sema, when he was teaching it to us, I used to learn in West Long Branch Shul with Rabbi Tobias, and I remember him giving us shiur. We asked him a question, and he said back when pizza was first introduced to the community, he was saying that it was like a snack, like you say, oh, let's go for ices, let's go for a slice of pizza. Like it was considered not like a meal, but it was considered a snack. So if it was less than that amount, and then less than a kazayit and a small slice, the people got into the custom of being used to say mezonot. But according to all these rules, even one slice, I'm a very big believer that even one slice is hamotzi. I know it's annoying because that's
a hard one.
Margie, have the wrap. Margie, have the wrap. No, it's difficult because pizza is very available whenever, let's say for the office, or the teacher's room, everyone, they're like, what should we get? Let's look, yalla, just cheap, get like 15 pies and let everybody eat. But even Sfaradim, you got to wash on. I don't see how you get around it. I really don't. There are some places which people don't usually like that use apple juice in the dough. So if you were to use apple juice here, then that's right. You can tell the difference right away when they use apple juice in a pizza dough. You usually never come back there. That's usually that's
not pizza time.
Not pizza time, sure. Pizza time Gan Eden. Right now, I'm a J person. That's it. So, right, the Uber Eats, the fastest thing ever. But like all those pizza, especially like in the pizza stores in the city, like Bravo, you see what do they have? They have a deep dish, thick slice like this. It's all bread. It's 100% bread. There's nothing else in it. So pizza's a big one. Another one that I had a trouble with for a long time was English muffin. So English muffin, many people do say hamotzi on it. Again, me with the processedness, the English muffin, it definitely tastes a little bit different than regular bread, and I have been known to wash on it. But what I recommend is you have to see how you taste it. If you could taste anything else in it, then say mezonot. It's been a while since I've had an English muffin, a very long time. Somebody asked me about it. They're very good. I used to melt the cheese on it. It was excellent. But I remember tasting something different in an English muffin, that it wasn't 100% bread. And I was used to saying mezonot. Again, if you have a safek, then you say the mezonot. Again, if you look, I believe the second ingredient over there also high fructose corn syrup. A lot they just puff it up and they bake it into like a biscuit instead of other bread. It's more in how it's cooked, but you can taste it. You could taste that there's something different there. I also say hamotzi, as I told you let's say on a cheese pretzel. But let's get down to, well, before we do that, I want to do this source of Hazon Ovadia. Any questions on that so far? So here you go, Hazon Ovadia. He says this outright, guys. So mark down this source. It's in Hazon Ovadia. Where does he put all the laws of Berachot? Hazon Ovadia Tu Bishvat. Beautiful, no? Amud Nun Vav, and also the Or Letzion Chelek Bet Amud Sadi Zayin. So Cham Ben Tzion Abba Shaul says the same thing. Umeata, based on all this, halachmaniyot, the small rolls, ve'ahalot hamitukot, and the sweet challah rolls. Anu hasfaradim shekibanu alenu horaot maran, en lanu levarech alehem ela bore mine mezonot. We should only be making on these bore mine mezonot uberacha me'ain shalosh, and ala mehya. She'anu הולכים תמיד אחר הוראות מרן בין להקל בין להחמיר ולא נסור מדבריו ימין ושמאל. We always follow what Maran says and we don't deviate left or right. So again, that it ends up being a big difficult for people that when they're running a sebit and they have rabbis there, they have people that know the halacha, and you're only going to put out these little halal rolls. You can ask for water halal rolls, but you have to make sure to ask. Or some people say, look, people like the halal rolls that are eggy, but also can I have a couple of dozen pita breads so that people can make hamotzi? In 8 Hanukkah coming up, what's the beracha on a jelly donut? You could say, Rabbi, come on, especially. And why is Hamavadia so having to do this? Because if you ever had, how many of you guys have had an Israeli jelly donut? An Israeli jelly donut is really amazing. Though, but it's like bread inside. It's almost like really mamash bread inside. He says no. He says even everyone, if you eat a sufganiya, haochel sufganim, hamituganim b'shemen, that are fried, even though they're made from thick dough and nothing is mixed into the dough, even the jelly ones, what do? They inject jelly in it after it's fried. And it's hard, not hard, meaning you got it's beefy, it's like girthy, you got to really get through it, like lehem. And the only thing you say is even if you establish a meal on it. Why? Because only on things that are patababi kisnin, that are baked in a and baked in an oven are called bread. And that you will that's when you can call something hamotzi. But if it's dough that is fried or boiled, they are never considered bread ever. So let's give some practical examples. Pasta, guys, right? What is pasta made out of? It's wheat. Pasta is wheat. It doesn't get, it's flour and water. There's nothing else. There's nothing else that's in it. Why is pasta mezonot? Why can't I, if I bake a lasagna or if I bake a baked ziti, right? Why isn't it because it doesn't puff up like bread. It has no image of bread. And most pastas usually you boil. The fact that you're boiling it, you can never say hamotzi in it. You can never eat enough pasta that you would ever have to say birkat hamazon. Ever. So therefore, anything that's like this, so now also frying donuts, you'll never say hamotzi on frying donuts. Same thing of, let's say, the Dunkin' Donuts. The beracha is always going to be mezonot because you're frying them. Some opinions do hold, and this was my great uncle, alav hashalom, Chacham David Tawil, my Uncle Dave Tawil. He used to make, then some people do follow this. I happen to not, meaning I should have taken the out as a towel, but I just couldn't. I was following my heart. That, ever wonder how the bagel gets crispy on the outside and like soft on the inside? So the way that happens is that they boil the bagel. They boil the bagel first and then they bake it. So why isn't that like pasta? So you should just say mezonot on all bagels because they're boiled. So really, because they're not edible after you boil them, they really goes by the baking. So therefore, they're mezonot if they're egg bagels or cinnamon raisin, but they're hamotzi if they're all water, let's say an everything bagel or sesame bagel, poppy. They're just sprinkling poppy seeds. They're rolling it in the seeds on the top, but nothing is baked inside the dough. So this is just an interesting klal that you have to know when it comes to that. So like if something's fried and it never has the shape of bread, then it's going to be mezonot. And closing, if it's pastel or pashtida, that's filled with fish or cheese, and the dough is normal, then the beracha is hamotzi. So that's the cheese pretzel. That's the let's say you had a sambusak, but that with no margarine. Why? We said, why is sambusak mezonot? Not because it has a pocket, because the dough is yellow. When you taste it, how much margarine is in a sambusak? How much? I see my cousin Irene laughing, so that's good. Maybe she knows about that. You agree with that, Irene? You agree with that? What do you say?
I'm just laughing. I don't know anything about baking sambusak, but
okay, fine. If anybody wants to weigh in about sambusak, we're here. But again, so say like a cheese pretzel is regular dough. They just threw cheese in it and they wrapped it. So it has to be, this builds on what Margie said, it has to be something that's sweet in order to make sure that it's mezonot.
A cheese pretzel is basically, it's a sandwich, you're saying.
It's like a cheese sandwich. Good analogy. It's like a sandwich. Now, a knish has spices and everything that's baked into the dough. What we said, like fila, is very crispy. It's crispy like a cracker. It breaks apart. So in those cases, it's going to be mezonot for the other reasons that we said. Same thing with a kibbeh. Kibbeh is made of bitachol, but it's fried. It's not baked. This is another reason that we said it doesn't look like bread. And also the shell is hard, so it ends up becoming crispy like a cracker. So a kibbeh, even though it's wheat, even though it's baked, is for a different reason. Okay? Last thing that I want to share, and then we're going to log off, is what about French toast? French toast is a popular one. So it depends what you're making the French toast out of. If you're making the French toast out of an egg challah, then it stays mezonot the whole time. If you're making French toast out of a water challah, then if you need two things to make it mezonot, you have to cut the pieces into less than a kezayit, and you have to fry them. So if you made the pieces less than a kezayit and you fried it, it changes the essence of the item, and it makes it like the sufganiya, because now you're intentionally frying it to change the form. So in that case, you're going to get, so mezonot, mezonot on French toast if it's either A, made from an egg challah already, or if it's made from a water challah that is now cut up into smaller pieces and then fried. Okay, that's it for today. But before I have a minute or two for questions, does anybody have a question? Anybody have any questions here?
With the rolls, with the chali rolls,
Yeah.
that was saying if they're egg chali, what was that saying? What
Yeah,
happened?
the
That's
egg,
based on-
meaning most of the most of the rolls that you get from these bakeries, like I know from Chiffon's bakery, like that supplies all the shuls. They're giving it it's an egg
Right.
roll. It's an egg.
Right.
It's an egg roll. So we don't say hamotzi on that. We say mizonot.
So it's not based on the size, it's based on the size of the
Based
roll?
on no, it's based on the
Even if-
egg
right.
that's the exorbitant amount of egg that's baked into the dough, and you taste it. You taste the difference. Everybody loves a good egg challah. It's amazing.
But if it's a water and it's
So-
the size of a roll, it's hamotzi.
Correct. If it's water, then it's hamotzi.
Got it.
Okay. Anybody else? Anyone else for questions? We finished the sheet. We'll start a new topic next week. But anybody else for questions, or we're good? Okay, looks like we're good. Thank you, ladies, for attending.
Wait, Rabbi,
Yeah, Margie.
2 seconds. I'm so embarrassed to make you repeat. I don't need a reason, but what do you say on a French toast that's made with challah that's not egg?
So it depends on the size. If they're cut into very small pieces, then it's mizonot. If they're cut into, let's say, like a full slice of the bread,
Yeah.
then it stays hamotzi.
So it's usually hamotzi then. Okay, thank you.
Again, it depends on how you make it, but those are the
Right.
rules. If it's water challah, if you're making it from a water challah that's already hamotzi, if the
Right.
slices are bigger than a kizayit, which is like half a pita, then you have to then you have to still say wash and still say hamotzi. If it's from an egg challah, it stays mizonot. There's no question.
Right.
If it's from a water challah but cut into small pieces and you fried it, then it's mizonot.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You got it, guys. Spread the word.